Welcome back. Today we're going to be going over section 1.2.1, the rebellion of the shamarym, or watchers. Before the flood, before the scattering of nations, before Yahuwah reset the world through judgment, something catastrophic occurred on Aratz. It was not merely moral decline, it was the corruption of flesh itself, the defilement of creation's design, and the contamination of all living beings. This section lays the foundation for understanding every later form of rebellion, including the technological corruption of the last days, which is outlined in sections 22.01 to 22.15.4. The corruption of Ratz and flesh. Yahuwah could have destroyed the adversary at the very moment the first glimpse of rebellion was seen in the rebel's heart, but Yahuwah did not. For if Yahuwah had, the beings of the shamarym would have known that they had no choice of disobedience, and this certainly would have meant free will was not permissible. It would have meant the immediate destruction of any being who aimed to go against the will of Yahuwah Alua. However, Yahuwah does permit free will, but he does not permit uncleanness or corruption in the place of righteousness. Hashatan was able to fall, yet the casting out of the first rebel did not end the tension in the unseen realm. It revealed something far more unsettling. Rebellion was not limited to one being. The fracture which the adversary caused rippled outward, disturbing the loyalties of others. What began as the downfall of a single exalted guardian opened a doorway through which other hearts of the shamarym would eventually walk. The record indicates the conflict did not end with the first casting out, for the story of defiance was not over. It was only widening. It was only growing more defiant. In time, beings entrusted with sacred responsibility, beings who once walked in loyalty, would turn their faces from the throne and choose corruption of their own. These were not ordinary mala'akim, or messengers. They were shamarym, or watchers, appointed guardians, observers, and teachers of the appointed order of creation to include the luminaries, which are the sun, moon, and stars, the signs, the times, and watching over humanity. These were their roles. These were their jobs. Their fall would shake the Aratz itself. Their deed would begin the unraveling of creation's order. The shamarym, watchers, and their sacred charge. As described in previous sections, the shamarym were not originally rebellious. They were noble, wise, and carefully appointed to oversee aspects of creation that demanded precision and vigilance. They were tasked with observing humanity, ensuring that the appointed times moved correctly, maintaining knowledge boundaries, reporting the state of the Aratz to Yahuwah, and protecting mankind from corruption that had not yet been revealed. Chanuk 1. And the shamarym, who the great Karash Alua had appointed to watch over men, saw and took note. They were supposed to guide without interference, teach without overstepping, and safeguard without dominating. But what they beheld among mankind awakened something forbidden, the descent that never should have happened. In the days when Adam's descendants multiplied, humanity still walked with a fading echo of purity given to their father. Their forms were beautiful, their voices were strong, their lifespans stretched across centuries. The shamarym looked upon the daughters of men, the women, not with compassion, not with guardianship, but with desire. Something in them changed. Duty became fascination. Fascination became longing. Longing became obsession. And obsession, when left unchecked, becomes transgression. Chanuk, chapter 6, verse 1 through 2. And it came to be, when the sons of men multiplied, that the shamarym saw the daughters of men, that they were fair and beautiful. And they said to one another, Come, let us choose for ourselves wives from among the daughters of men. The transgression was mentioned again in Barashit, or Genesis, chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. And it came to be, when men began to increase on the face of the Aratz, and the daughters were born to them, that the sons of Alua saw the daughters of men, that they were good, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. It's also mentioned again in Yobalim, chapter 4, verse 22. And he witnessed to the shamarym who had transgressed with the daughters of men, for these had begun to unite themselves, so as to be defiled with the daughters of men. And Chanuk, or Enoch, witnessed against them all. And in the same book it was yet mentioned again. Yobalim, chapter 7, verse 21. For owing to these three matters the flood came upon the Aratz, namely due to the whoring by which the shamarym, against the Torah of their laws, went whoring after the daughters of men, and took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. And they made the beginning of uncleanness. This was more than moral failure. It was treason. It was the rejection of boundaries set by Yahuwah himself. It was the beginning of uncleanness. And so it was that the shamarym descended upon Mount Hermon, a descent that would mark the Arats forever. The oath that sealed their fate. They did not act impulsively or alone. Their rebellion was deliberate, calculated, and unified. Upon the mountain they swore an oath of mutual execration, in other words, destruction. Each vowed that if judgment fell upon one, it must fall upon all. They bound themselves under a curse that bound them all so that not one could draw back from the plan, or they would be destroyed. This oath was their point of no return. Their leader, often identified as
Shamyaza,
feared the consequences and hesitated. Here is the context according to Hadabar. Chanuk, chapter 6, verse 3. And
Shamyaza,
who was their leader, said to them,
I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great transgression.
But those under him insisted, we will do this together. Chanuk, chapter 6, verse 4. And they all answered him and said,
Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual curses not to abandon this plan, but to do this matter.
Then they all swore together and bound themselves by mutual curses upon it. And they were, in all, 200 who descended in the days of Yarad on the summit of Mount Hermon, that is Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon, because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual curses upon it. The shamarym of the Shamayim, appointed to guard humanity, now conspired to corrupt it. Their descent was not a rescue, it was an invasion. With the events established, the record now turns to distinction, consequence, and the doctrinal architecture preserved in the earliest cosmology. The difference between
Shamyaza,
and
Azazyl.
This distinction is one of the load-bearing pillars of early cosmology. This is a two-stage rebellion model, not a single fall collapsed into one actor. They are listed separately, act separately, and are judged separately. These are not interchangeable roles.
Azazyl.
The adversary, Hashatan. How could Hashatan lead loyal beings into rebellion if he was already cast out? He didn't. Chanuk, chapter 9, verse 6. You see what
Azazyl
has done, who has taught all unrighteousness on Arats and revealed the eternal secrets which were in the Shamayim, which men were striving to learn. And again, Chanuk, chapter 10, verse 8. And the whole Arats has been corrupted through the works that were taught by
Azazyl.
To him ascribe all transgression, within the early worldview preserved in the book of Chanuk.
Azazyl.
Already functions as an opposer, an accuser, a corrupter of mankind, a being no longer operating within the loyal order of the Shamayim. In other words,
Azazyl.
Does not lead the shamarym descent because he is already outside the obedient structure. His rebellion precedes theirs. He corrupts humanity, not the order of the Shamayim. Chanuk, chapter 10, verses 4 through 6. And again Yahuwah said to Raphael, bind
Azazyl.
hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Judea, and cast him in there, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into the fire.
Azazyl.
Is the primary corrupter of mankind, primary instructor of forbidden knowledge, directly corrupts human civilization. His transgression is knowledge weaponization. He corrupts humanity itself. He taught weaponry, warfare, cosmetics, enchantments, metallurgy used for violence. His teachings accelerated human corruption, and he was immediately bound before the flood. And he was removed early because his influence was instructional and civilizational. Therefore,
Azazyl.
is bound as a pre-flood imprisonment. It is selective, not universal. Chanuk, chapter 10, verse 8. And the whole Arats has been corrupted through the works that were taught by
Azazyl.
To him ascribe all transgression. Summary,
Azazyl.
or Hashatan, is already fallen, already adversarial, spreads corruption outward, teaches mankind how to destroy itself, is contained early because his influence is instructional.
Shamyaza.
An unfallen shamarym, the authority who chooses rebellion. His role is far more unsettling, and that's intentional. He is the leader of the oath-bound rebel group, organizer and commander, the coordinator, not the chief instructor. The descent on Mount Hermon, he was the coordinator of. He was responsible for the collective rebellion. His transgression is authority violation and covenant breach. He is not bound at this point in the narrative. His judgment is delayed until later sections. This distinction is deliberate in the text. Chanukh chapter 6 verses 3 through 8. And
Shamyaza,
who was their leader, said to them,
I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great transgression.
and again, Chanukh chapter 9 verse 7. And
Shamyaza,
to whom you have given authority to bear rule over his associates. Chanukh chapter 10 verse 11. And Yahuwah said, Mikael, go, bind
Shamyaza,
and his associates who have united themselves with women so as to have defiled themselves with them in all their uncleanness.
Shamyaza,
Is still a being of the shamarym. He's still operating within the ordered hierarchy at this time. He's still entrusted with authority. He's still capable of oath-binding others. That is why the text emphasizes the oath, the collective decision, and the shared culpability. Let us all swear an oath. This is not temptation from below. This is mutiny from within. The sons of
Shamyaza,
the giants are destroyed by the flood,
Shamyaza,
and his associates are condemned. They are imprisoned after the flood. They are held until the final judgment. Therefore,
Shamyaza,
is not bound before the flood. Chanukh, chapter 10, verse 11. And Yahuwah said to Mikael, go bind
Shamyaza,
and his associates who have united themselves with the women so as to defile themselves with them in all their uncleanness. Summary.
Shamyaza,
The rebellion architect is still of the shamarym at the moment of choice. He still leads other beings into transgression. He still causes cosmic disorder. He still is judged later because his transgression is structural, and it fractures the governance of creation. If
Shamyaza,
and
Azazyl,
were the same being, the story collapses. But separated, the account preserves moral agency among beings of the shamarym. It preserves a hierarchy capable of failure, also proportional judgment, and it preserves a legal framework rather than chaos. It shows that rebellion did not require Hashatan to command it. It shows that beings with authority could choose destruction themselves. That is far more dangerous and far more instructive. The theological consequence. This structure means Hashatan
is not omnipotent.
Rebellion is not inevitable. Obedience is chosen, not automatic. Judgment is measured, not reactionary. And it explains why
Azazyl,
is bound early, and that
Shamyaza,
is allowed to witness the consequences first, and final judgment is deferred. All flesh had been corrupted. According to the combined testimony of Hadabar, archaeology, Nabai, or prophetic pattern, the following presentation of information is warranted. The forbidden unions. Once the shamarym crossed the boundary between the unseen and the arats, they took wives for themselves. And from these forbidden unions, beings were born who were never meant to exist. For transparency, the text regarding the oath is provided here again. Chanukh, chapter 6, verses 3 through 8. And
Shamyaza,
who was their leader said to them,
I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great transgression.
and they all answered him and said,
Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual curses not to abandon this plan, but to do this matter.
Then they all swore together and bound themselves by mutual curses upon it. And they were, in all, 200 who descended in the days of Yarad on the summit of Mount Hermon, that is Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon, because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual curses upon it. And these are the names of their chiefs.
Shamyaza, their leader, Arakluba, Ramaul, Kukabail, Tamlual, Ramlual, Danial, Yahazkel, Barakial, Asahaal, Armarus, Bataral, Ananal, Tsaklual, Shamshafual, Sataral, Tsurial, Yumyaal, Sarial.
These are their chiefs of tens. Continued. Chanukh chapter 7, verse 1 through 4. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose one for himself. And they began to go into them, and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them to know plants. And they became pregnant, and they brought forth great giants. And the giants brought forth Nephilim. And the Nephilim brought forth the Ulyud, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. Hanuk chapter 7, verse 5. And the women conceived and bore giants, whose height reached to the shamarym, who consumed all the labor of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And again, Barashit, or Genesis, chapter 6, verse 4. And Yahuwah said, My Ruach shall not strive with mankind forever, and is going astray. He is flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the Arats in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of Alua came in to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. And again, in Hanuk, chapter 9, verse 9, And the women having borne giants, and by this the whole Arats has been filled with blood of unrighteousness. And again, Hanuk, chapter 16, verse 1, From the days of slaughter and destruction and death of giants, from the souls of whose flesh the spirits having gone forth shall destroy without incurring judgment. Thus they shall destroy until the day of consummation, the great judgment, which shall be consummated upon the shamarym and upon the wicked. And again, Hanuk, chapter 106, verse 15, And they shall produce on the Arats giants, not according to the spirit, but according to the flesh. And there shall be much blood upon the Arats, and the Arats shall be cleansed from all the corruption which has been wrought upon it. And also again in Rauban, or Reuben, chapter 2, verse 19. And the women, lusting in their minds after the men, caused them to commit transgression. For women, having power over men by their beauty, entice their minds. And by the adornment of their appearance they take captive their souls. And through them the shamarym were led astray before the flood, because they continually beheld them, and they were seized with desire for them, and they committed the deed of lawlessness. And again, Yobalim, or Jubilees, chapter 5, verse 1. And it came to be when the children of men began to multiply upon the face of the Arats, and daughters were born to them, that the Mala'akim of Alua saw them in a certain year of this Yobel, that they were beautiful to look upon, and they took wives for themselves from all whom they chose, and they bore sons for them, and they were giants. And again, Yobalim, Jubilees, chapter 7, verse 22. And they brought forth sons, the Nephilim, and they were all evil, and they devoured one another. And the giants killed the Nephilim, and the Nephilim killed the Ulyudim, and the Ulyudim killed mankind. And everyone sold himself to work iniquity, and to shed much blood, and the Arats was filled with iniquity. Also mentioned in Hanuk, chapter 15, verse 3. Why have you left the high Kadash and eternal Shamayim, and laid with women, and defiled yourselves with the daughters of men, and taken wives for yourselves, and done as the children of Arats, and begotten giants for yourselves? And again, Hanuk, chapter 7, verses 5 through 6. And they began to transgress against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh, and to drink the blood. Then the Arats laid accusation against the lawless ones. The mingling of the shamarym, or watchers, with the daughters of men did not produce ordinary offspring. It produced Nephilim, beings of immense size, violent nature, insatiable appetite, and a corrupted spirit. The existence of giants is a fact in secular history, and also according to Hadabar. Here are some text entries which have not yet been provided that further cite the existence of giants in Hadabar. The Raphaim were a race of giants. Here is the context. Yobalim, or Jubilees, chapter 29, verse 9. But before they used to call the land Gilead, the land of the Raphaim, for it was the land of the Raphaim, and the Raphaim dwelt in it formerly. The Raphaim were giants, whose height was 10, 9, 8 down to 7 amah, and the Amorim dwelt in it afterwards. and the children of Amun also dwelt in it. And again, wisdom of Shalomah, or Solomon, chapter 14, verse 6. For when the proud giants were perishing, the hope of the world took refuge on a vessel, and, guided by your hand, left to the ages the seed of a new generation. And again, Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 16, verse 7. He did not spare the giants of old who rebelled in their strength. And again in Yahudah, or Judith, chapter 16, verse 7. For their mighty one did not fall by young men, nor did the sons of the Raphaim strike him down, nor did tall giants attack him. But Yahudah, the daughter of Merari, with the beauty of her countenance overthrew him. And again, Shamul, Shani, or 2 Samuel 21:20. And there was again a battle in Gath, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number, and he also was born to Rapha, descended from the giants. Hadabar, the word of Yahuwah, explains how the giants, the Uludim, and the Nephilim came to be and how most of them perished. However, after the shamarym came into the desirable women of whom they chose, those corrupted beings were roaming the Arats in abundance. And it was that the Arats groaned beneath their weight. And the ground was stained with blood, violence spread like fire, fear swallowed the hearts of the righteous. What had once been a world of order became a world of torment, because the corruption did not stop with them. Hadabar testifies that all flesh became corrupted, meaning human DNA, animal DNA, hybrid creatures, perversions of created kinds. Chanuk, chapter 7, verse 5. And they began to transgress against birds, beasts, and reptiles, and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and to drink the blood. This testimony indicates genetic violation and contamination on a global scale, an assault on biological boundaries established by Yahuwah in creation. Animals that should not exist. Hybrids born of the shamarym and beasts. Hadabar states that Yahuwah said, both man and beast, creeping creature and birds, sorry that I have made them. Barashit, chapter 6, verse 7. It also says, all flesh had corrupted their way on the Arats. Barashit, chapter 6, verse 12. Also, it says, all flesh has come before me. Arats is filled with violence through them. Barashit, chapter 6, verse 13. This was not poetic language, it was literal. Here are the full texts. Barashit, chapter 6, verse 7. And Yahuwah said, I am going to wipe off man whom I have created from the face of the Arats, both man and beast, creeping creature, and the birds of the Shemayim, for I am sorry that I have made them. Barashit, chapter 6, verse 11 through 13. And the Arats was corrupt before Aluah, and the Arats was filled with violence. And Yahuwah Aluah looked upon the Arats and saw that it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the Arats. And Aluah said to Noach, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the Arats is filled with violence through them, and see, I am going to destroy them from the Arats. The shamarym did not merely mingle with the daughters of men, they taught humanity the secrets of genetic manipulation of creation, mixing kinds that were never meant to cross. This fact is viewable in well-preserved ancient hieroglyphs all over the world. Evidently, this manipulation of creation was not limited to root cuttings and splicing of vegetation. The implication is, from this violation came hybrid animals, monstrous chimeras. In biology, an organism containing a mixture of genetically different tissues formed by processes such as fusion of early embryos, grafting, or mutation. Predatory megafauna, the large mammals of particular region, habitat, or geological period, and corrupted species of every shape. And within this framework, even the vast violent creatures now classified as carnivorous dinosaurs are interpreted not as products of long evolutionary ages, but as biological outcomes of the same pre-flood corruption of kinds. Due to the corruption of flesh, the pre-flood world was not the quiet, green paradise often imagined. It was a realm where reptilian hybrids roamed, flesh-eating monstrosities stalked valleys, flying abominations overshadowed the mountains, fanged beasts hunted mankind, creatures revered later as gods or dragons or serpents ruled regions. This aligns exactly with why every ancient civilization from Sumer to China to the Americas preserves memories of dragon-like beings, feathered serpents, giant beasts, and hybrid animals. The corruption was total. But that was not enough, for the Shamari corruption went further still. The forbidden knowledge. The shamarym had wanted to make the Arats their throne, and so they taught mankind. What they taught did not elevate mankind, it corrupted them. Chanukh chapter 7 verses 1 through 2,
Azazyl,
or Hashatan, taught them to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the Arats, and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much lawlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. And they taught them charms and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. Furthermore, Chanukh details the names of the rebels responsible for teaching each type of forbidden knowledge. Chanukh chapter 8 verses 1 through 2. And
Azazyl,
taught the men to make swords, and knives, and shields, and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the Arats, and the art of working them, and bracelets, and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the adorning of eyelids, and all the kind of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much wickedness, and they committed whoring, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways,
Shamyaza,
taught enchantments and root cuttings,
Armaris, the resolving of enchantments, Barakial, astrology, Kukabal, the constellations, Yahazkal, the knowledge of the clouds, Arakial, the signs of the earth, Shamsial, the signs of the sun, and Sarial, the course of the moon.
And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to the shamarym. The Book of the Giants. This is a reconstructed text. They knew the secrets of the shamarym, and they lived by violence, and they began to kill one another, and the Arats cried out because of them. And the giants took counsel together and said, "We have learned wisdom and knowledge, yet we shall not escape destruction." And they sought to hide their deeds, but their transgressions were made known in the shamarym, because they revealed mysteries which were not to be revealed, and they taught knowledge that brings destruction. As can clearly be seen, the corrupted rebellious shamarym had descended and taught mankind forbidden knowledge, sorcery, weaponry, astrology as divination, enchantments, the corrupted form known today as witchcraft, root cutting, which is medicines and pharmaceuticals, occult mysteries, which is mysticism, magic, alchemy, astrology, and tarot reading, seduction arts, warcraft, manipulation of creation, weather manipulation, and cloud knowledge, and advanced technologies. Spiritual corruption mirrored the physical corruption. As flesh was corrupted, so was worship. Humanity turned to sorcery, idolatry, necromancy, blood rituals, invocation of fallen beings. These practices have evolved throughout history since the time of the Shamari descent into what is seen today. Here are a list of examples: Satanism, witchcraft, black magic, Wiccanism, sorcery, mysticism, spells, etc. The rebellious shamarym, or watchers, became the first gods of the nations, and they are the origins of later gods, to include Mesopotamian deities of Babel, gods of Mitzrayim, Canaanite idols, and Greek titans. This spiritual corruption was inseparable from biological corruption. Knowledge reserved for the shamarym realm was handed recklessly to Arats, and mankind, already weakened by the legacy of the fall, was no match for such power. The pattern repeats in the last days. Yahusha warned in Hadabar, "As the days of Noach were, so shall the coming of the Son of Adam be." What defined the days of Noach? Genetic corruption, hybridization, violence, shamarym teaching forbidden technology, total surveillance by spiritual beings, domination by hybrid rulers, global judgment approaching. And today we see the return of genetic manipulation, human-animal chimera projects and experiments, transhumanism and DNA rewriting, AI replacing the image of humanity, spiritual contamination through ideology, secrecy of global elites matching ancient patterns, a world moving toward unified rebellion. History is not merely repeating in pattern. The same categories of corruption described in the days of Noach are re-emerging in technological, biological, and spiritual form. Creation cries out for deliverance. As the shamarym unleashed corruption upon the Arats, the cries of mankind rose to the shamayim. The blood of the innocent stained the ground. The violence of the giants ravaged the nations. The influence of shamarym twisted everything Yahuwah had called good. Violence was not merely widespread, it was the natural outcome of corrupted flesh. Chanukh records this horror. Chanukh, chapter 8, verses 2 through 4. And men perished, and the Arats groaned, and all creation cried out because of the lawlessness which the shamarym had taught and the giants had wrought. Creation itself could no longer bear their presence. The court of the shamayim responds. When the corruption reached its height, the cries of mankind entered the court of Yahuwah. The shamayim host trembled at the scale of defiance. What the first rebel had attempted in the shamayim, the shamarym had now manifested fully on Arats. So it was that Alua issued judgment. Chanukh, chapter 10, verses 11 through 13. Destroy the giants and bind the shamarym who have corrupted the Arats. Bind them for 70 generations beneath the mountains of the Arats until the great day of judgment. The shamarym had chosen their fate. Their oath had sealed it. Judgment had come. Some were bound. Some were forced to watch their offspring perish. And the flood that followed would wipe away the last evidence of their monstrous defilement. The massive trees removed before the flood. Ancient accounts preserved in fragments across cultures describe colossal trees that once grew across the Arats, towering far beyond anything we see today. These pre-flood giants offered strongholds for the Nephilim, allowed them to cling to the height and terrain in defiance, could withstand enormous pressure, were used strategically as places of refuge. But Hadabar reveals that Yahuwah sent Mala'akim to cut them down, so that none of the giants could survive by clinging to the heights. The Book of the Giants, fragment 4Q 530-2, 5-7. And Yahuwah said to the Mala'akim, Go cut down the trees from the Arats, the mighty growth with which the Nephilim had made to rise, for the whole Arats has been corrupted by their hands. Let these trees be felled. Some evidence consistent with this description remains today in geological formations that resemble colossal petrified trunks, preserved in ways that align with rapid mineral replacement under catastrophic burial. This small detail explains worldwide myths of gods cutting down world trees. You have
Greek Dionysus, Greek Hermes, Greek Zeus, Celtic Isus,
the anomalous geological formations resembling impossibly large stumps. Ayan Tepui, Devil's Tower, the Giant's Causeway. Though not trees scientifically, their structure echoes the memory of what once was. Petrified trees. Here is a fact regarding petrification of tree trunks. A tree trunk submerged for a year can petrify under certain conditions, including rapid burial, mineral-rich water, and lack of oxygen to prevent decay. If buried quickly, water can infiltrate the wood cells, replacing organic material with minerals. Although conventional models assign petrification of long timescales, laboratory and field observations demonstrate that rapid mineral replacement can occur under conditions of sudden burial, high pressure, mineral saturation, and oxygen exclusion, conditions fully present during a global cataclysm like the flood. The circumstances were the flood and its mineral-rich waters of the Shamayim, the depths of the Arats, and those turbulent waters filled with the bodies of fallen giants, people, birds, beasts, and vegetation. Whether geological or metaphorical echoes remain, the testimony is consistent. Yahuwah stripped the giants of every advantage before unleashing the flood. the gravity of what had been lost. When the shamarym fell, the shamayim mourned, not because justice was wrong, but because beings once appointed for honor had abandoned everything they were created to be. Their fall reshaped the spiritual geography of the world. Their corruption set in motion cycles of deception that would echo across millennia. Their offspring became the subject of legends and fears. Their teachings infiltrated the nations. Their influence birthed the earliest forms of occultism, idolatry, and hidden knowledge that still lives today. This was no small rebellion. It was the second great rupture of creation, the one that poisoned the bloodline of mankind. And yet, even in judgment, Yahuwah preserved a remnant. Because the story was far from over, the promise of redemption was still moving toward fulfillment. But for now, the shamayim recorded with grief. The shamarym have fallen. This concludes section 1.2.1, the rebellion of the shamarym, and continues into section 1.2.1, the aftermath of the Shamari fall. Shalom, brothers and sisters.